Well, welcome to this seminar on the discrimination of the Roma people. We're very happy to have a panel, an eminent panel with us. Desiderio Gergely is, like mentioned, the director of the European Roma Rights Center. He's also been the state secretary for the Romanian government and advisor on Roma issues. Bagir Kvik is in the Roma Council of Gothenburg, and he's also one of the initiative holders to the Romsan exhibition, Romsan project, sorry, at the local museum, city museum in Gothenburg, where they also initiated a exhibition called Vi är Romer, We Are Roma. Glad to have you here. The Roma people are the largest minority in Europe and also the most discriminated against. We've seen a lot of cases of open racism, open discrimination, institutionalized discrimination, and it's been going on for a very, very long time. Where does all this hatred come from? Is there any way to answer that question, Desiderio?
Definitely. Okay, so you can hear me now. Sure, we have to look back in time, and we have to say that when the Roma came into Europe, long time ago, almost 1,000 years ago, first they were labeled with a word which is Atziganoi. This word, which in Central Eastern Europe is known by Tsigan, or gypsy, as we all know, in the Greek word means untouchable. So since the moment of their arrival in Europe, the Roma were perceived as a group of people which doesn't need to be touched. That was the real sense which the majority gave to them. So for example, in the Romani language, there is no word Tsigan, which is basically the common feature of the denomination of the Roma in Central Eastern Europe, but rather there is Rom. One person who is a Roma would say, Mesem Rom, not Mesem Tsigan. My point here is that the sense of exclusion, which they were facing with, was from the beginning. We have to say that the Roma minority, and it is only recently acknowledged in Europe, were also victims of the Holocaust. You know? The Roma minority was persecuted in time in Europe, and in Central Eastern European countries, particularly in Romania, Roma were slaves. They were officially labeled as slaves. There were communism regimes which also persecuted them. So coming to your question, what is the reason? The reason is that they were all the time perceived as something which is not belonging in the society. And this also, it is very much related to misperception, to prejudices, and after all, to the exclusion, which is discrimination, yes? So it is important for us to understand the context of the perception of the Roma minority, which we face now. Last week, for example, in France, discussions about Roma are put in the following note. They don't share the values we share, therefore they have to be sent back to their countries of origin. Is this a language which is a common feature for European values, that as long as you are different, you don't belong here, so you have to be sent back? So this is part of the discussion on Roma issues.
And almost only the Roma minority are harassed in that way. What are your feelings about this, Bagir?
When I look upon history, I also see different factors that played a big role in the exclusion of the Roma. For an example, many Roma came just before the Ottoman Empire started to expand as well in Europe. And this factor made a big difference how the Roma were treated in Europe, many were the misconception of that the Roma maybe were a part of the Ottoman Empire started to flourish all over Europe, and people started to look upon the Roma as a scary new group that came into Europe, and this misconception of the Roma as part of the Ottoman Empire was a contributing factor to that the Roma were not well received in Europe as well. And this has continued all throughout the Roma history in Europe. Afraid of this new group. I think when you look upon the Roma and you say that the Roma themselves chose exclusion, because I've heard this argument many times, you can argue the other way, that the Roma would not be a part, wouldn't be excluded if society didn't exclude them. They would be a part of Europe today. It wouldn't be a problem today.
We've had a very recent disclosure in Sweden about a register kept by the police on Roma persons, including activists, musicians, athletes, and so on, who have nothing to do with crime whatsoever. Even 2-year-olds were in this register. Bagir, do you know if your name is in the register?
I don't really know yet, and it doesn't really matter if I'm in this register or not. The fact that the Swedish police had a register of a Roma is the scary part. In Sweden, it's illegal to register people on the basis of their ethnic minority. And this fact is more scary than if I am in a register or not. This has to stop, and it shows again and again. This country is a country that has worked very well with trying to include the Roma population in Sweden. We are acknowledged as a minority group in Sweden. And this is a big setback for this work, who has been very successful here in Sweden.
Bagir, Desiderio, is this a common practice among police authorities in the rest of Europe? Do you know?
I am aware of cases also in other countries, and I can also pinpoint here Romania, but 10 to 12 years ago, when I was working as a lawyer representing Roma, we encountered situation whereby, for example, the police was keeping confidential records with perpetrators, but providing only the ethnicity in the cases of Roma. In some situations, for example, you could see police reports or press releases where they would say, we identified 10 crimes, and out of these 10 crimes, in 5, the perpetrators are Roma. But they were not doing this with other minority members. So this is basically indicating a pattern of, as you said, institutionalized discrimination, because there's a distinction made on the basis of race or ethnicity, which is not allowed. So first of all, I think that the problem with keeping registry of minority members, it's a problem related to the rule of law and to transparency. As a citizen in a country, I have to feel that I am protected by law enforcement and that I'm in a safety environment. But as long as someone registers me and I don't know why, and particularly I don't know what is this registry aiming for and what is going to be done with that and why is that happening, of course I don't have the security feeling, I don't have the trust second of all. And I think this fact, which is now the case here in Sweden, it has a huge implication on the minorities' trust in law enforcement. You know.
In the 90s, there were a lot of reports on pogroms, basically, against Roma people in Romania, where the villages were burnt down. A couple of years ago, the same thing happened in Italy. Roma camps were set on fire, and deportations from France a couple of years back. What is the situation like now? What's going on in Europe? What is the situation on this kind of open aggression?
The situation is not extremely different from what you just described. What we are seeing in Europe, both Central Eastern Europe, South Central Eastern Europe, and Western European countries, is that there is a high level of anti-Romani sentiment, which is manifested particularly in the public discourse. Specifically, I would say in the political discourse, there's a very open anti-Roma rhetoric which takes place in many countries, whereby, for example, the presence of the Roma communities, it is perceived as a threat to the public order, it is perceived as a threat to the security of the societies, and this discourse in some cases led to attacks against Romani individuals, communities, or settlements. Unfortunately, we have such attacks reported in a number of countries this year. Some months ago, we have attacks in France, we have attacks in Italy, we have attacks in Serbia, we have attacks in Hungary, or in Czech Republic, or in Slovakia, or in Ukraine. So unfortunately, the situation from the perspective of the, let's say, safety of the Roma communities, it's not well at all. The other problem is that if we look on the social and economic situation of the Roma communities in Europe, there is a wide discrepancy and gap between the economic status. On one hand, we have high levels of unemployment, we have a very low income which Roma families earn. Secondly, we have a low level of educational attainments among the Roma children or Roma individuals. We have a substandard housing situation in regard to the situation of the Roma communities, and then you couple this deterioration of economic situation, you couple this with strong anti-Roma feelings, you couple this with anti-Roma political rhetoric, and that is a very dangerous sign that things are not progressing.
Bagir, have you ever been face to face with open aggression with racist attackers?
Unfortunately, I have to answer yes. For Roma, this is an everyday situation. For us, growing up, we used to meeting this every day, even in Sweden and other parts of Europe as well. So unfortunately, I have to answer yes on that question.
Can you describe a situation like that, an everyday situation?
When you go into stores, you are followed by security guards. You come to the store with your family, coming to buy bread or milk like everybody else, and you get followed by security guards in the stores, literally walking 2 meters away from you. And you have to try to explain this to your child. Why are they following us, Father? And I have to explain to my little daughter why this happens to be. So this is
What do you
normal
say?
every day. I told her that he had some mental problems, of course. And that's why he was following us. But you have to make a change
Which
for
was
this.
probably true.
It probably was.
No way.
I can give you another example which it can be found in Central Eastern European countries, and that relates to children. For example, there are many situations whereby Romani children are not learning together with the non-Romani children. So in cases like Czech Republic or Slovakia, you have separate classes for the Romani children. Or like in Greece, you have separate facilities for Romani children. Or in Bulgaria, similarly, or in Hungary, and in Czech Republic particularly, you have cases where the Romani children are enrolled in schools designed for children with mental disabilities. So even though these Romani children are just the same as any other children, they cannot learn together with the others because of their ethnicity. And this is happening right now. So we have challenged that legally, and we won even before the European Court of Human Rights against states like Czech Republic, like Croatia, like Hungary, because this is unacceptable. You cannot treat someone differently on the sole basis of ethnicity.
2 years ago, the Swedish government said that in 20 years' time, the Roma minority in Sweden will be completely integrated. That is their goal, their vision. Is that a realistic vision? Are you hopeful about it?
I feel it's a good plan that they have. And when you think about this big setback with the registration of the Roma, maybe they have set us back 1 or 2 years. But it's important to still aim for that goal and to see solutions. There's a lot of focus on the Roma as a problem. there should be more focus on how to solve all these questions. How can we be a part of the European community? We've been here for 1,000 years, and the only thing they discuss is how the Roma is a problem. The Roma is not a problem. The structure, the anti-Tsiganism, that is a problem. That is the big question to solve.
Yes, exactly. Let's finish this discussion with talking about the positive examples, if there are any. I've heard that in Spain they've been quite successful with the integration of Roma people. Can you elaborate on that, or any other examples that are successful?
What is important here is that we in the last 10 years we have been seeing also progress. So in Central Eastern European countries as well as Western European countries, we have been seeing legal frameworks changing, acknowledging the status of the Roma as a national or ethnic minority. We have been seeing adoptions of anti-discrimination laws, which is important because law should protect against discrimination. We have been seeing also governments adopting policies on Roma. Now, what we are not seeing yet, so we see a lot of political commitment to address the issues and the challenges faced by the Roma communities, but at the local level we are still not seeing the change into the life of the Roma. And that comes from a variety of factors which I just told you. It is the open anti-Roma sentiments, the open political agendas against Roma, and it is about local politicians who are afraid that they would be losing their constituencies' trust and votes if they will do something for the Roma. So it is a complicated and complex problem, but it requires commitments from all sides, from the Roma minority itself, but also from the politicians, from the society, and from governments. So it requires a common effort, but it requires a serious effort. It is not enough to say, yes, we know the extent of the problem, because now the European Union acknowledged that. Yeah? Member states acknowledge that. Now it is the time to say, okay, we have acknowledged it, we see where we are, now we have to do this, 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 this. Those steps are yet not in place.
When will they be?
I hope by 2020.
2020. Okay. Any last words on that, Bagir?
I think it's important not only to discuss above the Roma of the different governments, how to do and what to do. It's important to give the Roma the knowledge and the tools themselves. It's an important thing to have a grassroots movement. Give the knowledge for the Roma as well, so we can build up both organizations and the Roma community. Power is in knowledge, and it's important to give the Roma the rights to this knowledge as well.
Thank you very much for a very important and interesting talk. Desiderio Gergely from the European Roma Rights Center and Bagir Kvik from the Roma Council in Gothenburg. Thank you.
Thank you.